free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are in.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump and First Lady Melania are visiting the flood-ravaged areas in Texas today as a dozen states send teams to help in the search for victims. President Trump imposes a 35% blanket tariff on Canadian imports, blaming Ottawa for failing to stop deadly fentanyl and for targeting U.S. dairy farmers. Secretary of State Marco Rubio meeting with Russia's top diplomat at the ASEAN summit today. He reaffirmed U.S. frustration over the stalled process in peace in Ukraine. Meanwhile, President Trump will make a major statement on Russia on Monday. A group of House Democrats says Congress needs to modernize the energy grid to make it less vulnerable in the future. They're proposing a plan to strengthen infrastructure. A potential game changer on U.S. soil. A mining company CEO tells NTD's David Lam about a rare earth minerals mine set to break ground today.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania are arriving in Texas to survey the damage caused by the catastrophic flooding that has killed more than 120 people. Joining the President and the First Lady is Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Senator John Cornyn, and Senator Ted Cruz. Earlier, Governor Abbott announced the federal government has added more counties to President Trump's major disaster declaration. This means that qualifying Texans who suffered damages from the floods can apply for grant funding to assist with repair and recovery expenses. Rescue crews from out of state are stepping up in Kerrville, Texas. They were helping local responders today following last weekend's devastating flash floods. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the latest on the aftermath of the disaster that killed more than 100 people.
A rescue task force from Nevada was on the ground in Kerrville, Texas today. A dozen states have dispatched search teams to Kerr County. It's where the majority of victims were killed when heavy rains escalated into floods in the early hours of July 4th. First responders from Louisiana joined the effort, launching a boat into the Guadalupe River in Kerrville to search for the missing. At least 120 people have been killed. At least 96 people, including 36 children, died in Kerr County. 161 people remain unaccounted for. The dead included 27 campers and staff members from Camp Mystic, an all-girls Christian summer retreat on the banks of the Guadalupe. Kerr County lies in what is known as Flash Flood Alley, a region in central Texas that has seen some of the country's deadliest floods. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Residents in Central Texas are seeking assistance from FEMA and other government agencies following the devastating floods. Locals in Kerrville told their survival stories. Some considered whether officials could have done things differently ahead of the disaster. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on how Texans are dealing with the aftermath.
Air Force veteran Dean Burke woke before dawn on July 4th to find his trailer flooding in Kerrville, Texas. He woke up his wife and then opened the door. Floodwater poured in.
We walked in water out of our trailer, and it was up to here. Yeah, we almost drowned.
Burke was one of several residents seeking assistance at a disaster recovery center opened yesterday. Volunteers and staff from the Texas Division of Emergency Management, FEMA, and the Small Business Administration set up desks in a local church. Retired psychologist Carol Clark Yeomans said there was an advisory before the floods hit.
We got a warning, but we get flash flood warnings every now and then. I mean, you know, and it's kind of like, oh, well, okay, it's going to rain. And I don't think people took it seriously. Nobody expected this at all. And there was no siren. They're talking about getting sirens.
Rachel Vickers has run a window cleaning business with her husband since 1989. The 68-year-old is reluctant to cast blame for the disaster.
I mean, it was at 2 feet, and then all of a sudden it was 26 feet. And you're going, whoa! And it was kind of like a brick wall was coming towards you, and you can't do anything about that.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem held a meeting yesterday about overhauling FEMA. Noem said streamlining disaster relief to the states is a top priority. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
President Donald Trump is in Central Texas today to survey damage from the July 4th flash flood that killed at least 120 people and left dozens more missing. Joining us now to discuss is political strategist Timothy Allen Simon, former Public Utilities Commissioner for California. Timothy, good afternoon to you. So from what you've seen so far, how would you personally assess the federal, state, and local response to the Texas floods?
Well, I think the response has probably been as expected because of the difficulty in the terrain, the lack of certain communication capabilities in certain areas that some feel led to not an appropriate evacuation effort before the Guadalupe River rose, I should say, 26 feet. It's to be seen. This unfortunate disaster hit at a time when the president has expressed eliminating FEMA and putting the power and resources in the states, something that many governors have objected to because of the strength of the federal purse strings and the ability of the federal government to amass resources. On the other side, there's been complaints about the red tape and bureaucracy involving FEMA aid. Some feel states can do a better job and more rapid recovery, particularly in helping families stabilize their living environments.
So you mentioned FEMA, and this is amid past efforts of the Trump administration trying to scale it back. What do you make of the situation where now the Trump administration is supporting the disaster response agency, and as well, a reporter asked President Trump, and he was dodging questions on this subject?
Well, what we've learned in the second Trump administration is that it basically is whatever President Trump feels a situation is at that time. The term is used, the last one to speak to him. So unfortunately, the victims and those who are in most need do not have the level of certainty. Now, in all fairness, the president did state shortly after the disaster that the administration will be there for Texas. Texas has been a very strong red state for the Republican Party. This administration has in many cases politicized aid, like in the state that I'm in, California. I do expect that the president will follow through on all that is needed to bring recovery to this Texas Hill Country. But in the long run, I think we're going to see major changes to disaster recovery in this country.
Okay, I'll ask another thing, Timothy. Some lawmakers are linking President Trump's cuts to the National Weather Service to the disaster. So Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer demanded that administration conduct an inquiry into whether staffing shortages contributed to the catastrophic loss of life. What is your view on this? Do you believe that cuts had any material impact on the quality of forecasting in this case?
I think it's a formidable allegation that should result in congressional inquiry and an independent review. You know, we're talking, you know, a massive loss of life, something that some say could have been prevented with the proper type of response system in place. I think it was the lieutenant governor that stated Israel has a very robust siren system when they're under attack. So I do think it's worthy of Congress to investigate our disaster response capabilities that clearly could use improvement. I think both sides of the aisle share that feeling, and I think Minority Leader Schumer is on the right track in pushing forward to an inquiry to get more information, because with information you can do better. You know, knowledge is power. And that, you know, and it's sad that we have today an environment where inquiry is viewed as purely partisan and you know, the liberal left and all these types of things. No, inquiries are how you find out the information to prevent what had happened in the past. History is our best teacher.
Okay, speaking of both sides of the aisle. Let me bring in the other side of the argument, and maybe we can get your comments on that. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says blaming President Trump for these floods is a deprived lie, and President Trump also saying this is a once in 200-year event. So how can you even prepare for that?
Well, it is what we call in the law force majeure, an act of God. But this region of Texas has had incidences where the river has risen and even has caused fatalities. So this is not something new. And as I understand it, certain members, and I believe Texas will be having a special legislative session, are begging the question, is this an area where camps should occupy if it's under a continuous threat of the Guadalupe River rising the way it did? So again, for the sake of the families, let me extend my prayers and condolences to the family in the region. This is a time when both sides of the aisle should come together to try to find out the facts to make certain that we can minimize the risk associated with natural disasters, by which many feel are caused by climate change.
And Timothy, I think we should address a very important question here. How do you distinguish between politicizing a tragedy and demanding accountability? Where is the line?
Well, I think the line is best practices in government. And this is something that this administration has been criticized for. They've made these allegations of DEI hires. However, there have been pockets of what's been shown a certain degree of incompetence within the administration, and it's not associated with clearly with DE&I. So I think the accountability question is what government oversight is there for. Yes, it has political impacts at election time, but we should always be seeking greater accountability with our federal resources.
Okay, Timothy, I'll just end with this. What lessons should lawmakers and the public as well take away from the Texas floods?
To invest in safety and particularly evacuation. And that's not Texas. I can say my state of California has had its unfortunate disasters involving wildfires. We as a society have to take the impacts of what I refer to force majeure, acts of God. We have to have ready plans that we live by in order to minimize the fatalities and the damaging of families and societies as a result of natural disasters. And investing in that preparation is a good investment, even though, understandably, it doesn't happen all the time, but that time it does happen. If you've made those investments, if you've made that training, if you have those evacuation routes, which I have experience in as a result of being a former California Public Utilities Commissioner, then you minimized your risk, or you've managed your risk. And I think that's what states will walk away from with this tragic incident.
Well, Timothy, it's always great to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too. Coming up, President Trump imposes a 35% blanket tariff on Canadian imports, blaming Ottawa for failing to stop deadly fentanyl and for targeting U.S. dairy farmers. We have that and more when we come back.
£6 prescription glasses from Select Specs are always great value. There are no offer codes or first-time customers only. Anyone can buy them, anytime. And you can upgrade to Select Specs Express for next-day delivery. And with deferred payments, you can spread the cost.
See now, pay later with Select Specs £6 specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options available at selectspecs.com/£6.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without him.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits 0, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens.
Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says there is a high probability of a meeting between President Donald Trump and Communist Party of China Xi Jinping. Rubio made the comments after a meeting with his Chinese counterpart in Malaysia at the ASEAN Summit. NTD's Daniel Monahan has that, plus details of Rubio's meeting today with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov.
Secretary Rubio called the talks with Chinese counterpart Wang Yi very constructive, but says the two sides still have issues to resolve.
And that's to be expected with countries of our size and scope and influence in the world, two global powers such as the United States and China. But I thought it was a very constructive and positive meeting and gave us some things we can work on together.
Rubio says the odds of a Trump-Xi meeting are high and believes both sides want to see it happen.
Obviously, we have to build the right atmosphere and the right deliverables so that a visit isn't just a visit, but it actually has some takeaways from it that are concrete.
The Secretary of State says the countries have to be able to interact with one another despite any differences.
I think the Chinese position on Taiwan has been expressed. I don't think it's a mystery to anyone in terms of where they stand on it. And our position has also been expressed pretty openly.
The meeting comes amid escalating friction globally over new tariffs imposed by the U.S. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Rubio held more talks on Friday on the sidelines of the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Malaysia.
Yes, we discussed the Ukraine crisis, and we reaffirmed our position stated by President Putin. And he reiterated this position once again during the call with President Trump on July 3rd.
The talks followed a 50-minute meeting between the two diplomats in Kuala Lumpur on Thursday. President Trump says he plans to make a major statement on Russia on Monday. Trump earlier expressed frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin due to the lack of progress on peace with Ukraine and Russia's intensifying bombardment of Ukrainian cities. Turning to tariffs, Rubio said today he was not concerned that U.S. tariffs could create an opening for China to be seen as a stable economic partner.
I don't agree with that assessment. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the United States has built these tremendous trade imbalances over the last 30 or 40 years. It's unfair to American and American workers, and American, in addition to threaten our industrial capacity. Trade needed to be revisited. The president campaigned on that, and that's what he's doing.
Rubio says the U.S. is seizing the opportunity to reset global trade in a way that's fair for Americans after 2 or 3 decades of unfairness.
So I understand if you had a deal where you were running these huge trade deficits with the United States and exporting a lot to the U.S. and built your economy around exports, but had very little import or very little economic activity coming in from the United States, I understand why you don't want that to change.
The United States this week announced new tariffs on many Asian countries, including 25% on Japan, South Korea, and Malaysia. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Trade tensions continue to dominate headlines this week. President Trump announced yesterday he's imposing a 35% blanket tariff on Canadian imports. NTD's Daniel Monahan has that and other trade updates.
In a letter posted to his Truth Social platform, President Trump told Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney that the new 35% tariff rate would take effect on August 1st. The president said the U.S. originally imposed tariffs on Canada over the fentanyl crisis, accusing Ottawa of failing to stop the deadly drug from entering the U.S. Trump added that instead of cooperating, Canada retaliated with its own tariffs. Carney responded on X, writing that Canada has made vital progress to stop the scourge of fentanyl in North America, adding that Canada is committed to continuing to work with the United States to save lives and protect communities in both countries. Carney also said the Canadian government has steadfastly defended its workers and businesses throughout the current trade negotiations with the United States. In his letter, Trump also took aim at Canada's dairy policies, accusing Ottawa of charging U.S. dairy farmers tariffs as high as 400% while limiting their access to Canadian markets. Meanwhile, President Trump says he plans to raise blanket tariffs on most U.S. trade partners, proposing rates of 15 to 20%, up from the current 10%. He dismissed concerns about inflation or the stock market, pointing to a record-high S&P 500 close on Thursday. The president sent letters to 22 countries outlining new tariff rates this week, including a 50% tariff on Brazilian imports. Some other tariff rates include Indonesia at 32%, South Africa at 30%, and Japan, Malaysia, and South Korea all at 25%. President Trump also moved to protect the U.S. copper industry this week with a 50% tariff on the strategic metal set to begin next month. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The State Department is firing more than 1,300 employees. Foreign Service officers who have been laid off will be placed on leave for 120 days. For most affected civil servants, the separation period is 60 days. That's according to an internal notice obtained by the Associated Press. A union for diplomats urged the State Department last month to hold off on the job cuts. Its president called it a disruption to foreign service that puts national interests at risk, saying Americans everywhere will bear the consequences. President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio say the cuts are necessary to make the department more efficient. A recent ruling by the Supreme Court cleared the way for the layoffs to begin. Lawsuits challenging the legality of the cuts will continue to play out. A group of House Democrats says Congress needs to modernize the energy grid to make it less vulnerable in the future. They're proposing a plan to strengthen infrastructure, permitting, and clean energy. NTD's Melina Weitzkopf reports.
The Republicans' big budget bill repeals key clean energy tax credits enacted under the Inflation Reduction Act. Democrats warned the phase-out of these credits would lead to elevated energy costs.
A lot of job losses, clean energy companies closing right away. They can't, when they know the tax credit is going to be cut off shortly, they're not going forward right now with their projects.
Congressman Scott Peters of the New Democrat Coalition said for the first time in decades, America faces a massive increase in energy demand due to AI data centers, onshoring manufacturing, and the electrification of our economy. Though many Republicans in the White House argue that wind and solar energy are expensive and unreliable and create dependencies on foreign adversaries. Instead, the Republicans' bill favors traditional fossil fuels, saying they are cheaper and more reliable.
Make our country energy independent again and end the war, the attack on American energy that we've seen for 4 years, crush jobs, crush the economy, force families to pay too much for gasoline, and embolden the enemies of our nation like Russia, Iran, and others. And those days are over with this one big, beautiful bill.
The New Democrat Coalition plan aims to make it more affordable to produce clean energy in America. It focuses on permitting reform, mineral mining, and expanding tax credits. Though the group doesn't hold any leadership in the current Congress, they hope to push their plan as a roadmap for future bipartisan bills. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weitzkopf, NTD News.
A divided federal appeals court today has thrown out a plea deal that would have spared an accused September 11th mastermind from the risk of the death penalty. The suspect, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, was planning to plead guilty in exchange for avoiding execution for al-Qaeda's 2001 attacks. The deal was negotiated over 2 years and approved by military prosecutors and the Pentagon senior official for Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, a year ago. Under the deal, Mohammed and 2 co-defendants would have automatically gotten life sentences without parole. Mohammed is accused of developing and directing the pilot to crash hijacked airplanes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, as well as a field in Pennsylvania. Chaos at a cannabis farm near Los Angeles after protesters clashed with immigration agents. It's the latest escalation over the Trump administration's efforts to deport illegal immigrants. Here's the story.
A heated confrontation erupted Thursday between immigration agents and protesters at a state-licensed marijuana farm in Southern California. It happened after ICE agents arrived to conduct immigration raids at Glass House Farms, a marijuana nursery legal under state law. According to Fox News, federal authorities suspect the farm employs illegal immigrants. A second raid took place at another Glass House facility in Carpinteria. As word and video images of the raid spread on social media, local outlets say dozens of protesters converge on the area. The agents eventually used tear gas and smoke bombs to disperse the protesters. The mayor of nearby Oxnard called the raid bold and aggressive, accusing ICE of causing unnecessary distress and harm. Footage from the scene shows multiple arrests. Authorities say at least 7 people were injured, 4 taken to the hospital, 3 treated at the scene. U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California Bill Asaley says an unknown suspect apparently fired a pistol at federal officers. He says the FBI has issued a $50,000 award for information leading to their conviction. Governor Gavin Newsom condemned the raid, saying children ran from tear gas as their parents were taken. Customs and Border officials say 10 minors were found working at the site, 8 unaccompanied. An investigation into child labor is now underway. President Trump's border czar Tom Homan spoke out against protesters trying to stop ICE from conducting raids.
You have the right to protest. I support that. But when you cross a line on impeding us, you're going to be arrested. If you cross the line and put hands on an ICE officer, 0 tolerance, you're going to be arrested. So yell and scream all you want. You're not going to stop ICE from doing our job.
Elsewhere, a federal judge is weighing whether Kilmar Abrego Garcia can return home to Maryland while he awaits trial on human smuggling charges. The Salvadoran national became a political lightning rod in March when he was deported despite court protections. After a Supreme Court order and mounting pressure, the administration returned him to face charges. U.S. District Judge Paula Zinnes heard arguments Thursday and will continue the hearing Friday in federal court. Abrego Garcia's lawyers have asked Zinnes to order the U.S. government to bring him to Maryland to await his trial in a bid to prevent another deportation.
We're going to argue that Mr. Abrego Garcia has the right to meaningful notice and meaningful opportunity to be heard by an immigration judge prior to being put on any plane.
Abrego Garcia could be released from a Tennessee jail as early as next week. He was arrested after a 2022 traffic stop where he was found transporting 9 passengers without luggage, triggering federal suspicion. Prosecutors say immigration agents may detain him again and start deportation proceedings, potentially before he gets to defend himself in court. Meanwhile, Columbia University's Mahmoud Khalil is demanding $20 million from the Trump administration. He says he was falsely imprisoned and smeared as an anti-Semite. Mahmoud Khalil spent over 100 days in detention before being released on bail in June. Federal agents arrested him in March under a Trump executive order targeting anti-Semitism and pro-terrorist speech on campuses. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin responded saying, quote, "It was Khalil who terrorized Jewish students on campus. He branded himself as anti-Semite through his own hateful behavior and rhetoric." She said the administration was well within its constitutional authority to detain Khalil.
The Senate Appropriations Committee voted 15-14 yesterday to block the Trump administration's plan to keep the FBI headquarters in D.C. This comes after a years-long back and forth over the agency's future location. In a previous decision, the FBI was set to move to Greenbelt, Maryland. But last week, the Trump administration pushed to keep it in D.C., just blocks from the current site. In a close vote yesterday, lawmakers approved an amendment that would bar federal funding from being used to move the FBI to anywhere besides Greenbelt. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski joined Democrats to back the amendment. The Department of Education says interest will resume on student loans starting next month. The move complies with an injunction that blocked parts of the Biden-era student debt plan earlier this year. The Saving on a Valuable Education Plan was launched in 2023, but was ruled unlawful by a federal appeals court earlier this year. Under the plan, student loan payments are calculated based on the individual's income and family size and prevented interest from getting accrued. The department says borrowers won't be charged retroactive interest and will be contacted with options to move to legal repayment plans. It says it would reach out to more than 7 million people with student debt. A son of Mexican drug lord Joaquin Guzman, known as El Chapo, is expected to plead guilty in federal court in Chicago today. As part of a deal with prosecutors, Ovidio Guzman Lopez was extradited to the U.S. in 2023 after his arrest in Mexico. He's accused of helping lead a faction of the Sinaloa cartel and trafficking massive amounts of fentanyl and other drugs into the United States. Investigators say his group supplied much of the narcotics flooding Chicago's streets. The plea agreement, if finalized, would make him the first of El Chapo's sons to reach a deal with federal prosecutors. Legal analysts say the terms of the agreement remain unclear, but could include a lengthy prison sentence and possible protections for Guzman and his family. Walmart is recalling about 850,000 Ozark Trail stainless steel water bottles. The action follows reports of injuries involving their screw cap lids. The Consumer Product Safety Commission said yesterday the lid can forcibly eject when opening the bottle. The agency said it received 3 reports of people getting struck in the face with the lids, with 2 of them suffering permanent vision loss. Consumers are advised to immediately stop using the bottles, which they can take to any Walmart location for a refund. Coming up, President Trump is expected to send a letter to the European Union today outlining new import tariffs, how Europe is reacting to the awaited announcement. We have that and more after the break.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day. Becoming a better version of myself. To be the better mirror for my son. I mean, he's just growing. He's becoming his own person. Man, first I saw him dance, bro, he brings the vibes, you know what I'm saying? He brings the party no matter what. He really a definition of like why he loves somebody. And I love him to the death of me.
I debate all day. It's what I do. But there are some things that are undebatable, like your mental health, my own mental health. I was in a dark place when my brother passed away in a car accident. I've never been more devastated than the day I lost my mom. I was depressed, miserable, in ways I never imagined. I reached out, and my sisters came, my pastor, my therapist. They helped me get through it. I found that the more I spoke up, the healthier my mind became. The chaos that was in me began to subside. I was more focused, clear. When you love your mind, you can go so much further. That's not up for debate. Find mental health resources at loveyourmindtoday.org.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. But only you can prevent wildfires.
Life's daily battles are not meant to be fought alone.
Cloud, you okay?
Because checking in on a friend can create a safe space. Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Seize the awkward. It's totally worth it.
The European Union is racing for new import duties imposed by Washington. President Trump is scheduled to send a letter today outlining planned duties on the European bloc. The EU initially hoped to strike a comprehensive trade agreement with the U.S. This might have included 0-for-0 tariffs on industrial goods, but it now looks like the bloc will probably have to settle for an interim agreement and hope to renegotiate in the future. Economic powerhouse Germany is urging the EU to strike a quick deal to safeguard its industry. Other members, such as France, have said EU negotiators should not agree to a one-sided deal on U.S. terms. European shares dipped today as investors awaited word on the tariffs. TikTok is under a new investigation by its main regulator in the European Union. The concern is the app's storage of data in China. Ireland's Data Protection Commission announced yesterday it is looking into the issue. The latest probe came just weeks after the social media company was hit by a fine of $620 million. The decision is a result of a 4-year investigation by Irish regulators. They ruled that TikTok violated the EU's General Data Protection Regulation by sending European users' data back to China. During the earlier investigation, TikTok blamed European users' personal data was not stored on servers located within China. But in April, regulators learned that some European users' data had actually been stored there. Congress has less than a week to pass the rescissions requested by the White House, and President Trump has warned lawmakers that he will withdraw his endorsement to any senators who oppose the cuts. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has the details.
The White House has requested Congress rescind, meaning claw back some $9.4 billion in already appropriated funds for USAID, NPR, and PBS. The rescissions package is meant to target wasteful spending, and the House of Representatives has already passed a bill over a month ago. Most Republican senators agree with its contents.
If you get the idea, that's why I call it spending porn. Triggers your gag reflex. You look at this stuff and you go, what in God's name? Who decided to do this? Well, Congress didn't. The bureaucrats did. It's money we appropriated, but we didn't tell them to go spend money, $833,000, and give to sex workers in Nepal.
The USAID money, much of it, and this is not cutting all of it, of course, but much of it is used for ways that are really not benefiting global health and others that it's advertised for. And also the fact that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, particularly on the NPR side, has for years been very much a left-leaning organization.
Some Republicans want to amend the House-passed bill to strike out rescissions that target the president's emergency plan for aid relief. Senate Democrats oppose the bill altogether, but have singled out rescissions that target public broadcasting.
I want to strike the rescissions of funds for PEPFAR. I can't imagine why we would want to terminate that program or the maternal and child health program.
Public broadcasting reaches nearly 99% of Americans. 99% with programming they don't have to pay for. Delivering educational programming for our kids, coverage of local news stories, and life-saving emergency alerts.
If the Senate amends the House-passed bill, the legislation will need to go back to the lower chamber, and there's an important time constraint for Congress.
You know, obviously, it's got a Friday next week deadline to process it, so we'll have it up on the floor next week. Hopefully, we get on it.
It's important to note that funding cuts aimed at the president's emergency plan for aid relief only amount to 8% of total funding for the program. And funding cuts aimed at public broadcasting would only reduce stations' revenue nationwide by 9 to a maximum of 17%. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
A potential game changer on U.S. soil, a new mine in Wyoming will be the first rare earth site in the United States since the 1950s. The mining company's CEO told NTD's David Lamb what this means for the U.S.
In Wyoming, the newest rare earth mine in the United States in more than 70 years, Ahead of the Brook Mine's official opening on Friday, NTD spoke to Ramaco Resources CEO Randall Atkins.
What makes this project unique compared to other domestic mining projects?
Well, it's unique in a number of respects. This is the first time that rare earth has really been found in coal in sufficient concentrations to be commercially viable. So it's a really groundbreaking for really not only coal but rare earths, because they're found in something that's not radioactive like most other types.
Ramaco says the Brook Mine could provide major source materials needed for military technology, batteries, medical devices, and more. According to Ramaco, China currently holds a heavy concentration of these minerals, which makes this new mine a game changer for American independence.
We will be processing it domestically because, again, it's not radioactive, which is why most of the rare earths found in the United States, frankly, are shipped overseas. MP sells all of its rare earths in China because they're radioactive. And it will eventually, of course, all of them will be used domestically. So this is kind of a Team USA effort. And so ultimately, we may even go beyond just simply manufacturing oxides. We may take it all the way to making magnets and potentially even wafers for semiconductors.
He says they already started mining about a month ago, and they will develop materials to use in a pilot plant that will start this summer.
And then we would be in a position to sell commercial oxides probably by, I'd say, late 27 or 28. We may try to accelerate that process because, candidly, the government wants to accelerate the ability to get our nation on a sounder footing for supplies of rare earths.
Atkins believes this project will put Wyoming on the map as a rare earth capital, with the Brook Mine reportedly being the largest unconventional deposit in North America. David Lamb, NTD News.
Rare earth minerals like antimony, gallium, and germanium are still making their way into the U.S. despite China's export ban last December. Under the ban, usually large shipments have been arriving from places like Thailand and Mexico. Shipping records suggest at least one Chinese-owned company is involved. Here's more.
These minerals are critical for semiconductors, batteries, and military tech, and the U.S. has been scrambling to secure supplies elsewhere. From last December to April, U.S. imports of antimony oxides topped 4,000 tons, more than the total of the past 3 years combined. At the same time, Chinese customs data shows that Thailand and Mexico have become the top exporters of Chinese antimony. Because of this trade arrangement, U.S. imports of these critical minerals are matching pre-ban levels, but at higher prices. China responded by cracking down on transshipments and smuggling in May. Offenders could face fines, export bans, or even jail time. But with prices soaring due to strong demand, some are still willing to take the risk.
Swiss researchers have developed a new method to efficiently recover rare earth elements from electronic waste. The novel approach could advance sustainable recycling and reduce mining reliance. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
Rare earth elements play a crucial role in modern electronics, but the energy and chemical effort to separate elements in the materials is expensive. Currently, less than 1% of rare earth materials are recycled. ETH Zurich has developed a new method. Progress from an initially crude process.
At the very beginning, I was actually collecting these broken light bulbs, and I was smashing them and doing all the extraction myself. Now, luckily, we work with recyclers.
The discovery comes as the European Union is pushing toward greater recycling of rare earth metals. The EU's 2023 Critical Raw Material Act aims to mine 10%, process 40%, and recycle 25% of its needs by 2030. ETH Zurich's process could help meet that goal.
These elements, they have very close properties, and this is why their separation and the extraction has such a big environmental impact because they have really close properties.
The next goal is to bring the technology to scale by working with industrial partners. Perrin hopes that will eventually lead to in-house recycling capacity.
I think the long-term vision for us is more to be able to develop these little recycling boxes that then can be implemented either at recyclers or within industries that use these rare earth elements in their supply chain, so that they can have kind of in-house recycling of their own materials.
According to business consultant Alex Partners, China currently dominates the rare earth metals market, controlling up to 70% of global rare earths mining and 85% of refining capacity. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
South Korea's defense ministry released video footage today showing a joint air drill it held with Japan and the United States. It involved a U.S. B-52 strategic bomber and fighter jets over international waters. It was the first time this year that a U.S. B-52H strategic bomber was deployed to the Korean peninsula for a drill. It was conducted to improve deterrence against North Korea's increasing nuclear and missile threats. The U.S. signed a deal today with Australia and Japan. It boosts maritime cooperation between the three countries. The aim is to ensure security in the Indo-Pacific. The agreement includes developing a system to speed up missile reloading for warships at sea. Three countries will also improve their ability to refuel ships at sea. According to a statement, this is the first time a logistics agreement has been established under this framework. The signing took place ahead of a military exercise called Talisman Sabre 2025. Australia, Japan, and other partners are set to participate in the drill. Paris opened the Seine to public swimming for the first time in a century. But near the Eiffel Tower, the fun was short-lived. The pool remained closed for 5 days due to rain. NTD's international correspondent David Revez reports from Paris.
Parisians flocked to the Seine as authorities opened the river to public swimming for the first time since 1923. The long-awaited reopening follows a major cleanup effort accelerated by preparations for the Paris Olympics, where the river served as a competition venue. Swimmers stormed the Eiffel Tower pool on July 5 for its grand reopening.
Oh, it's warmer than I thought. It's nice, and also I never imagined being in the water close to the Eiffel Tower.
I'm Parisian. It's been a long time since I've swum in the Seine, since I was a child, and I find it truly extraordinary and magical.
According to local officials, 3 designated sites along the Seine will welcome over 1,000 swimmers per day until August 31. Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo and France's Sport Minister Marie Barsac greeted swimmers at one of the sites.
Still, swimming in the Seine is not an easy matter. Heavy rainfall on Sunday and Monday forced the town hall to close the basin for 4 days, just 1 day after their festive inauguration. The presence of E. coli bacteria increases when heavy rainfall causes the sewer to overflow into the Seine, discharging dirty water into the river. Last year, record rainfall during the Olympic Games often made the water unsuitable for athletes to swim in.
On Friday, despite 2 consecutive sunny days, authorities closed the site again.
Today we tried to swim close to Louvre, and it was also closed, even though it was open at midday in the morning. And now we came here, and they just closed it because they had some sort of accident. So far not too successful.
Tourists said there's little to no way of knowing in advance whether the Seine sites are open for swimming, and there's no number to call.
According to the town hall website, it was supposed to be open. There are signs at each site that show if a location is open or not, and this one was marked as open. But when we got here, it wasn't.
Manager of the swimming pool told us other spots along the Seine may still be open to swimmers, but not this one. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
From a one-stoplight town to national stages, meet the Wildmans, the sibling duo reviving Appalachian music with heart, talent, and a brand new record. Stay tuned for that after the break.
Hey, have you heard what's happening at Mathis Home? Get new lower prices all summer long with price drop alerts all over the store. They have all the latest looks at unbeatable prices. Like this big sofa with curved arms and 5 plush throw pillows. They dropped the price to just $5.99. That's an incredible value. And with their huge selection, you're sure to find the style that's just right for you. In stock with fast, free delivery. Look for price drop alert tags and save now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
I didn't ask to lose my mother or to be abused at 5 years old. I didn't ask to be kicked out of my house with nowhere to go. I didn't ask for any of this. But I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there. Thanks to their love and support, and to generous people like you, I got what I needed to take control of my life.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant house every night. 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Your gift can help reach them when they need it most.
I didn't ask for my parents and my family to disown me. I didn't ask to end up in a homeless shelter. The beauty of it all is that I found Covenant House.
The need is overwhelming, but your monthly support will make sure no young person is ever turned away. Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today. If there's no Covenant House, where would I be today?
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations. Show them they're loved and not alone. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-360-7824.
Joining us now from Texas to discuss the flooding is Darlene Sanchez, a reporter for the Epoch Times. Good afternoon, Darlene. Thanks for joining us here again. To start off, can you comment on the significance here of President Trump's visit to Kerr County?
I think it speaks to the tragedy that we all saw unfold, the morning of July 4th. I was there on the ground afterwards and spoke with folks there, and, they had, incredible stories to tell about coming together after this disaster, to comfort each other. There were more than 100 people dead from this flood throughout the Central Texas area. In the hardest hit area of Kerrville itself, there were about 96 people that have been confirmed dead, and 36 of those are children. Many of the children were camped alongside the river at Christian camps, attending, there for the summer. That's been going on for generations there in this small town. So it was an extreme tragedy, and it was a perfect storm that happened that took the lives of all those people.
And can you speak to the tone that President Trump was talking about the tragedy before leaving Washington?
He called it a horrible, horrific incident. And of course it was, very much so. He has spoken out a couple times saying how much he supports, the people of Texas. He's talked about how, they're going to be there to try to help them rebuild. And of course he, has the utmost sympathy for, the people, the families of the victims that lost their lives in this tragedy.
And what has locals been saying? You were there, right, about federal, state, and local response to the floods?
I think that they are very appreciative. There have been people from all over the state come in to help, of course, people from out of state as well. I believe there was even one fire and rescue crew that came up from Mexico to help. So they've been very appreciative of that. They've been coming together. I was there on the ground, and I went to one of the hard-hit RV parks. It was devastating. There was really nothing left there. There were, RVs mangled and crushed up against trees. Giant cypresses were snapped in half. These trees, had to be over 100 years old. So it was incredible to see and to think about the force and the power of that flood that washed through there, and think about those little girls that were caught up in that. People have come together with their faith. Whenever I've asked people there, what do you need the most? They'd look me in the eye and say, pray for us. we want your prayers. We need prayers. And so their faith in God and in each other, really coming together, was what struck me there as something that was incredible to behold.
Okay, on the topic of the response here, talk to us about the National Weather Service and its role in issuing alerts.
Well, the National Weather Service, from what we can tell right now, they did issue alerts the day before on the 3rd, as they were looking at their models, they did issue, a watch for a flood watch. And then on the 4th, of course, they issued more leading up to the event that was unfolding, in the pre-dawn hours there. There's been controversy, not necessarily about that as much as just how exactly it played out on the ground. I talked to a business owner whose business was, of course, lost there along the river. He ran a kayak business. He had his own RV there, but he had a bunch of specialized kayaks and would take people down, down the Guadalupe River as part of his business. And he signed up for something called Red Alert, and it's a system where you can sign up, and people along the river with businesses and homes can get alerts if there is a flood possibility or flooding happening. And he said he got one of those alerts that morning. He looked down though, and it was an hour later than what it was actually issued, the time it said it was issued. So if it was issued at 5:30, he didn't get it until 6:30. So there's a question about how the community, disaster response handled the situation. And it's something that the sheriff promised that he would, look into. They would go through it and that they would issue the report publicly and try to fix anything that went wrong.
So as we all know, President Trump is visiting the area right now. I mean, what actions have President Trump taken?
Well, he signed a disaster declaration, which opens up funding for, those who lived along the river and, lost their homes. So it opens that up. From what I understand, the people have said, FEMA's been on the ground there. They are helping. I haven't heard any complaints about that. So it seems like that part is running smoothly. Now, there is a question about the business owners there. A lot of them got hit. And I know the one business owner with the kayaks I talked to, he's like, I need help. He's like, we all need help here. So the businesses, they're not, they're kind of in one of those gray areas. So I think, whatever help people could give to them to help rebuild, of course, is going to go a long way because, that's their livelihoods as well. The town's about 25,000 people. So you can imagine, even one business is probably, if it can't get back up and going, how that's going to impact everybody there.
That's always interesting to me. You're talking about locals saying, pray for us. And you're mentioning this business owner talking about recovery efforts. Can you expand a bit more? Are there any more you can tell us about the public mood, recovery efforts in Central Texas?
Everybody I talked to at one point, it's like their voices were breaking and they were on the verge of tears. I spoke to a gentleman a couple days back that told me an incredible story that we wrote about. He's a business owner, has a property overlooking the Guadalupe River. It's probably about 30 feet up. I mean, if you're down there at the river and then looking up, you can imagine just, tilting your head like a 45-degree angle. And that's kind of where his business would have been from the ground looking up there. And so I went and talked with him, and he told me an incredible story about finding a guy that was that morning. He's a landscape business owner. He was up very early in the July 4th morning and heard all these sirens and all this commotion going on. He said probably around, 5 o'clock, 4:30-ish. And he went outside and saw water, unbelievably, in the backyard of where his business was, coming up. It's still rising. And he called his family members and got them out there. They started moving, some furniture, lawn furniture, equipment in the backyard to higher ground. And they heard somebody very faintly. It sounded like, he said at first he didn't know. He thought it was maybe just an animal or something. But he heard somebody, and then finally they figured out it was somebody calling for help. And so they shined the flashlight over there and saw a guy that was clinging to their fence. And he told them that he'd been washed off the bridge. His car had washed off the bridge. He'd somehow made it out of his car, and he was hanging on for dear life. And they tied a rope around one of the family members, and the family member waded out into that water. The guy jumped to him, and they pulled him to safety. And, these kind of stories were happening all around.